But anyway, Dennis, I'm glad we're connected now.
Oh,
Thank you
thank
for
you
doing the
very much.
interview. Yeah.
No,
Uh,
it's brilliant.
all right, so let's start to talk about the new Lionheart album, The Grace of a Dragonfly. I mean, it's centered around World War II, but overall an anti-war concept album, right?
Um, yeah, the idea was to do when Lee started writing the lyrics was to do the concept
Mm,
album, but we had to be really, really careful because um, we didn't want it to come across to people, to fans, or to any country that we would elaborate in war or celebrating war. The idea was it against war.
yeah,
Um, so we decided to try and put the message across that this was dedicated to all the servicemen and women that from every country in the world that took part in the wars that sacrificed their lives in the war to make sure that we led um, a more free kind of life.
yeah,
It's very hard, Rodrigo, when you don't want to upset other countries and fans from Japan or Germany or Europe or wherever. So we had to be really, really careful. And but it was one of those from the heart, that we had to celebrate their lives and give thanks to the people that sacrificed their lives in the war.
yeah,
That comes across in the lyrics that Lee wrote. Thankfully, I'll add this very quickly. Thankfully, the reviews we've had from the album so far have been absolutely brilliant. But the nice thing about the reviews is that the people doing the reviews have actually listened to the album and listened to the lyrics and listened to the production and sort of really, really picked it about to say, look, this is great, this is nice. So as Steve said on the album in the notes, that the people that start these wars don't actually fight in them. They sit behind a desk.
yeah.
So it's one of those things that we don't want to elaborate it. We just want to celebrate and thank the people that sacrificed their lives. So that's the thing we have to get straight from the start.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing that caught my attention is that, well, the lyrics address a serious topic, of course, but the songs are incredibly upbeat. It's almost a feel-good album or a celebration or a thank you kind of album, right? With a gruesome subject, of course, but yeah,
Yeah, of course, yeah. And
yeah.
also, um, like Reality of Miracles, the actual song Reality of Miracles, I was
Mm,
talking to someone earlier today and said, years ago, um, that would never have been a sort of Lionheart song because it's very commercial and it's very poppy.
mm,
It's not actually heavy rock, um, and more like a ballady come sort of like commercial song. And the same thing on this album with the Eagle's Nest. There are songs on there that are quite commercial. And I've lost you. You can't see me anymore.
let me see. Yeah, I can't see you anymore, but that's okay. Let's continue just the audio. It still works.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know
that's,
what's happening here at the moment. It's all over the place.
uh,
But yeah,
that's yeah,
if that's okay with you,
yeah,
yeah,
sure.
brilliant. Okay, mate. I'll close that down because
Yeah.
I can look at you now. Yeah. So yeah. So as I say, it's a very important thing to put across to some some interviews I did last month in January where, oh, so this album is about war. I go, whoa, whoa, no, no. So
Yeah.
that's the main point we have to put.
Yeah. And I know you were born in 1952, and at the time, Europe was still struggling with the aftermath of World War II. Do
Yeah,
you have memories of that time and of the way this affected you in any way, or?
yeah. I have loads of memories. Although at the point when I was like 3 or 4, I
Mm,
didn't know about the war. I remember where we lived. The houses were all bomb sites. So basically, if you stood outside our old house in Canning Town in East London, across the road was a debris. And I always wondered when I was growing up as a young child, why is there a gap there's like two houses. Then there's this huge gap the size of a football pitch
Yeah.
or a tennis court. Then there's another house. Then there's another gap. And it was only as I grew up going to school, learning about certain things, was the fact that Mum used to say, well, that's where the bomb drops. What bomb? So slowly at 3 and 4, I remember my nan having certain ration bits of paper that she could only get so many eggs. She could only get so much food. And I never knew anything about the war. But it's one of those things, as you grow up, you're a little bit naive towards it. You start school and you don't really want to remember that. But yes, I remember. And believe me, where we played on the debris of the bombings, that was our playground. We didn't have a garden. We lived in old houses where the toilet was in the yard in the back. It was outside the house. We never had hot water. And I remember them days. I stayed in the same place. And when my mum and dad left home and moved in with my nan, I stayed there on my own because it was where I grew up, and it meant a lot to me. So although the windows were falling out and the door didn't shut, you could open the front door,
Right.
without a key. Just push the door, it would open. So
Right.
lots of big fond memories of them. Yeah, of
Oh,
them days.
wow. Yeah. And well, the first single is Flight 19, and it mentions the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah.
Is that based on an actual airplane that disappeared?
Well, the funny thing is, when Lee started writing all these lyrics and Steve started crashing in the studio with all the backing tracks and stuff, we found out that I only found out today. Funny enough, we did an interview earlier that
Right.
Flight 19 was after the war, but Steve and Lee very, very hot up, with the information from the history of the war. Especially Lee, he loves the reading all about it, and Clive as well. But apparently, it was 5 planes that took off together and disappeared completely. But
Oh,
that was
wow.
after the war. I heard Steve say today at one of the interviews we did together, which was they traced wreckage at the bottom of the ocean or the sea, wherever it was, and they brought it up, and it wasn't any of the planes that disappeared. So basically, the 5 planes that took off, if they read the history books, if you're interested, they took off and were never seen again, and it's still a mystery now. So they say about the Bermuda Triangle. I'm not
Yeah.
too clued up on the Bermuda Triangle. I know that many things have gone missing, but the planes were never discovered. So it's a true story. Yeah,
Wow. Wow.
yeah,
And yeah, V's for Victory, I think it's one of my favorites, and it's the second single. And you guys get to act a bit on the video. Uh,
yeah.
again, it's a fun and upbeat song and a video which addresses a tough subject as well, right?
Yeah, the funny thing is that certain like record companies like Metalville and certain people have different ideas about videos, and a lot of people do these sort of lyric videos now, and
Yeah.
it's not really featuring the band or whatever. But uh, Lee decided. He said, "Listen," he said, I'm going to try it." He's so dedicated, Lee, and he said, "I want to try and do a video. I'll do it from home. I just need all yous to do this, do that, do this, do that," and that's what we did. And with Steve's help, with his magic camera work and his computer stuff, um, it came out really well. And Lee, plays a great part in it. But that's probably the first or second video. We did one ourselves from the Reality of Miracles, but that's probably one of the first ones that we've actually did where we're actually playing a part
Right.
instead of just dancing around with a guitar.
Right.
And, yeah, and it worked.
Yeah.
So we decided to do the videos ourselves. We didn't need some guy who the record company know take over and just do a video. he thinks would be great. We did it how we wanted. It's the same as recording the album. We do it the way we want because Steve's got the studio. He's the producer. He's the recorder. He's the engineer, producer. He's got 10 acts that he puts on, and he just cracks on. So we have complete control of the recording, and we've just finished today, about 2 hours ago. I actually watched the next video and the next single, which is one of my songs, which is Little Ships.
Oh,
and a friend of mine, where we live now in Saffron Walden, a friend of mine in his bedroom, in his own little studio, Stacey Dunn, where I record all my guitar solos and do all my vocals at Stacey's studio. He's actually, we've asked him to do the video. He's never done a video before for Lionheart, but he's part of our team. And he's done this. And 2 hours ago, they sent it to us, and it looked fantastic. So that will be coming out hopefully in the next 2 weeks or so, 10 days.
Very cool. Very cool.
But yeah, we decided, and that B for Victory with Lee being like a little bit like Churchill, it's really fantastic. It's great that we do it ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, there are some incredible solos throughout the album. And I know you and Steve share the duties in that sense.
Yeah.
How do you guys split the work, or how do you decide who's going to play what solo and what song?
Well, to be honest, Steve's such a fantastic musician and guitarist. No matter how hard I try, I said this earlier today, no matter how hard I try, I try to get faster. I try to play more accurately. It never works. No matter what I have to do, I can sit with a guitar all day until my fingers bleed, and it never works. So I have to just play from the heart. So when we do solos, Steve will say, then, we got all the tracks down. I said, look, Steve, send me the solos you want me to play on the certain songs, or we do 2 solos, one each. Maybe one swapping with the other one fast, or slow. You do the first solo, I'll do the second solo, or I'll do the first, you do the second. So it comes with listening to the songs. But I mentioned this today again, that I try to do the solos to complement the song. I think that's more important. I learned a lot from Steve Lukather being a big influence to me, that you contribute a solo to complement the song, and I try not to overplay, because basically I can't. The hardest thing, and this is quite funny, the hardest thing is that when we're swapping solos in a fast song, and Steve does this fantastic run, and I think, how am I going to follow that? So he's very frustrated. But we play from the heart, and we don't try and copy anyone. The most important thing, as I say, is sometimes with the Reality of Miracles, there were some great solos that we put down, and I was trying to play slightly different to what I normally do. And there's a couple of little styles that I use in Reality of Miracles. when we were recording the Grace of a Dragonfly, I thought, this solo's sounding really good. And my wife Julia come in, she said, be careful. I said, why? She went, that sounds like one of the solos on Reality of Miracles. And when I clicked back, it was identical. I'm thinking,
wow.
That's the problem. When they're implanted, embedded in your head, your fingers automatically go to that run. So it's very hard to sort of switch off from the last album and try and write and reinvent a new style of solo, a new solo that will fit that song. And so it takes, and I'm lucky because we do these albums online. We're able to, as again, it started with the Reality of Miracles, because in COVID, in lockdown, we weren't allowed to go out. So, excuse me. So basically, it was one of those things that we learned. We have a good system where we can sit at home, work on the songs, listen to the track, work out the solos, and there's no rush. You're in your own little world, and you can carry on working on the solo as long as you want until you think it's right.
Right.
You're under no pressure.
Right.
So that's the way we do it.
Okay. And I think, well, with the more recent albums like Second Nature, sure.
Yeah, sorry.
Second Nature and the Reality of Miracles, and now the Grace of the Dragonfly. It seems you guys, I mean, it's the most productive or busiest time in the band's history so far, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things that Lionheart, I've said this many times, even from 1980, and then when we sort of like didn't record anymore, when Steve and Rocky were with Schenker in the late 80s, early 90s, I was with Prayer Mantis, we still kept in contact writing songs and keeping in contact with Lionheart, but we weren't actually a working unit. There's one thing about Lionheart that really suits everyone is that Lionheart doesn't create an income to live on. We have other projects which we've always done with Lee working with Sweet and his solo stuff, Steve working with Michael Schenker. So I have a lot of work in Europe doing the Maiden conventions and other stuff that I do with other bands and some session work with appearing on different albums. So that brings the income in. And as I said, during COVID, we found a way of working where we don't have to be together. We weren't allowed. And also we can do it quite easily and stress-free at home. And that's the only important thing is if Steve's away on tour with Michael Schenker, then we have to wait because that's the priority of his income. He lives on, he has to earn money. And while he's working in the studio for Lionheart, he earns nothing. And as Bruce Dickinson said many years ago, if you don't buy the album, the band can't tour. And that's a vicious circle. So if you download it, if you stream it, bye-bye, we won't see you live. And that's how we work now. And we found with the Reality of Miracles, we now found it even easier with the Grace of the Dragonfly because we were all at home in between working on our own stuff to bring an income in. So yes, and although the album takes longer because Steve's away and we're away, there might be a time where Steve will say, right, I'm at home. Can you do that? And I'll be away, and Rocky might be away, Clive might be away, Lee might be on tour with Sweet, and you go, Steve, sorry, mate, it's just the wrong time. So you have to make sure that we're all available. And that's why the album takes a little bit longer than normal.
Yeah, fair enough. And well, speaking of your recent endeavors, I know you did a tour recently in my homeland of Brazil, playing only Iron Maiden material. How did that one go?
It went very well. It was booked in, funny enough, in 2020. It was only because of, again, COVID, that the whole tour was cancelled. And I never thought, I'd never been there before. And I've been asked for so many years from promoters and from Maiden fans, especially in Brazil, they're massive.
Yeah.
And finally, I got an email and a text message saying, look, the tour was cancelled, postponed in 2020. Let's do it in 23. And I was over the moon. It was great. The band were absolutely fantastic. The Blood Brothers, they work with Diano and they work with Blaze, and they are just great musicians. The lovely thing about it is that we were traveling together lots of miles. We were like a family, and it was great. I was a little bit disappointed, I must say, with the promotion side of it because certain promoters in different cities basically didn't do the job that they told us they were doing. So when we got there, we got a lot of feedback from Iron Maiden fans that are on our social media saying, wow, we're glad you're here and all that, but the gig wasn't advertised, What? So there's no posters. No, we use social media, Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook. We use this. So because I was in a different territory, never been there before, I had to learn slowly a different way of working. And thankfully, Um, Even the band said to me after about 3 gigs, "We're really sorry, Dennis, because these venues should be sold out, but the fans still come. They saw our social media, and although the promotion and the promoters in Brazil and the promotion advertising let us down, the fans didn't, and they came and they loved it. It was fantastic."
That's awesome. I wish I was there. I live in Canada nowadays, but I wish I was there to see. I heard the stories about that tour, and
Yeah.
people loved it. Yeah. Yeah.
No, it was brilliant. And the lovely thing about it was that when the tour finished around, because some gigs were added at the end, so we played a little bit longer than we was going to. Because we were there from the tour finished on the 17th, 18th of December.
Mhm.
I thought, well, I'm going to stay for Christmas and New Year. So I rented a little place in Santos,
Oh
and there
wow.
we were on the beach for Christmas and New Year. And what a fantastic time, the firework display. The Brazilian country, they know how to celebrate things, I tell you.
That we do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unbelievable,
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah. And well, I know a lot of the songs on the second Iron Maiden album, Killers, were already written when you were with the band. There are shows on YouTube with you playing Drifter, Another Life, The
Of
Eyes of
course,
March, and so on.
yeah.
I mean, how far ahead were you guys in writing the second album when you left the band?
Well, the album we had between Steve and the band, we had about 30 songs. They were all written. So when you headline a tour in the UK, you have to play for an hour and a half.
Hmm.
So we were like playing the first and second album, apart from the song Killers, we were playing the first and second album live because they were already written. When we started working pre-production for Killers, once we'd recorded the first album, the Steve picked the songs for the first album, and he said to me, "We've got to save some of them for the second album, which
Right.
we were already playing live." So then, of course, when we went supporting with Judas Priest and Kiss, we only had to play for 45 minutes. So we played the first album with a couple of songs like Rothschild and things like that from the
Yeah.
second album. But Steve's the one that chooses the songs from whatever album they're going on.
Okay.
Um, I did all the pre-production for Killers because I was already playing them live, as you said.
Hmm.
Um, when it comes to Killers, we were working on that with the runs, the harmony guitars, which I'm still grateful they use because I took the harmony guitars into Maiden.
Yeah.
Um, and it was a shame that, although I just wish I'd been able to record that album because I didn't want to work. So, but it
Yeah.
wasn't to be. So, yeah, when we come back from the Kiss tour, yeah, it was obvious
Yeah.
that the Rod and Steve, we just think Rod just didn't see eye to eye with the music I listened to. So it's a long story, but
Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah,
Yeah, I've read stories about that, but that's a shame. But and I spoke with Blaze Bailey the other day and asked him if there'd been any discussion of bringing like past members of Maiden, like you or him and Paul Diano, on stage together at one point with the band. Was there ever any talk about that? I mean, maybe for a last show of the band or a last tour?
No,
No.
not regarding Diano and Blaze.
Mm.
What it was is because I talk to Steve all the time,
Mm.
mostly about football and West Ham, and
Right.
when he's with British Lions, I'm able to, if he's touring in the UK with British Lions, I can just drive down and see him and spend all afternoon with him talking about anything.
Awesome.
Because it's quieter. It's not manic like an Iron Maiden show with
Yeah.
thousands.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, many times in the text messages, I've said to him, um, we talk about bucket lists and what you've achieved, and we spoke about this in lockdown and on the phone, not just texting, but on the phone because he was at home as well.
Mhm.
And I've always said to him, Steve, there's one last thing on my bucket list, and you know what that is. And he just laughs. So I don't really get a reply. I don't get. I hopefully, and I wish this. God, I wish that they don't back up soon because they've been touring for before lockdown. So with the the tour they did, the Legacy, went on for years because of the break, because of COVID.
Yeah.
And I was there. I was in Boston. I was in Vegas. I went to Italy. I went everywhere to see him. And when we talk on the phone, I always drop that little joke in saying, "Don't forget, I've got one more wish on my bucket list before I go." And I never get a reply, but he does know that I've always said, "I just hope one more song."
Yeah, yeah. I'll keep my fingers crossed for that, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, back to Lionheart, are there any concrete plans to tour in promotion of the Grace of a Dragonfly, or what are you guys discussing at the moment?
Well, again, as I said, we said this today, an interview we did.
Mm,
We seem to have a little bit more time this year
mm,
than normal because whenever we've been offered tours or festivals or gigs, you've got to look at 5 people that are working continuously through the year. So you might get, okay, there's a tour going out. They want to, okay, oh, Lee, no, I can't do it. I'm working with Sweet. I'm on tour. Steve, nah, I'm with Michael Schenker doing. So you've got to find that lucky break somewhere where the whole band are not working. The whole band are free. And we're
right.
hoping to do that this year. We're hoping to do that with this album because it's been too long with Second Nature, with the Reality of Miracles, and now this one, The Grace of a Dragonfly. We need to put our mark back on live work. And yes, I know we have to wait to see if Michael Schenker's touring, if Rocky's touring, if Lee's touring, Clive. We have to see. That is the hardest bit, is finding them gaps in between a very tight schedule for the year. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll keep my fingers crossed for that one as well. But Dennis, thank you so much for the interview. All the best with the
Thank you.
promotion of this album. Yeah, thank you so much for so many years of great music as well.
Oh,
All
I'm
right.
so glad you like the album. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Bye
Bye.
bye.